I left my broke, boring husband for a bad boy. 5 years later, I'm in pain, and he's now a CEO. You won't believe the devastating mistake I made 5 years ago that haunts me every single day. While I was chasing excitement with a dangerous bad boy who promised me adventure and passion, I threw away the most loyal, loving man I'd ever known because he was too boring and didn't make enough money. Now my ex-husband David is the CEO of a multi-million-dollar tech company, married to a beautiful woman who appreciates what I was too foolish to see. Meanwhile, I'm struggling to survive after my bad boy left me broken, betrayed, and completely alone. But the most painful part? David tried to warn me, and I laughed in his face. My name is Jessica, and I'm 31 years old. 5 years ago, I made the worst decision of my life when I divorced my husband David to be with a man named Marcus who seemed like everything David wasn't. Dangerous, exciting, unpredictable, and absolutely intoxicating. At the time, I thought I was choosing passion over security, adventure over boredom, and a real man over someone I saw as weak and unambitious. I had no idea I was actually choosing destruction over the kind of love most women only dream of finding. When I married David 7 years ago, I thought he was sweet and reliable, but I gradually became frustrated with what I perceived as his lack of ambition and excitement. David worked as a software engineer at a small tech startup, making a modest but steady salary that allowed us to live comfortably in a small house with everything we needed, but none of the luxuries I craved. David was incredibly kind, thoughtful, and devoted to our marriage. He would bring me coffee in bed every morning, remember every important date, and constantly find small ways to show me he loved me. He would listen patiently when I complained about work, support my dreams and goals, and never raised his voice or made me feel anything but cherished. Jessica, you're the most important thing in my life, David would tell me regularly. Everything I do is because I want to build a good life for us together. But David's gentle, steady nature started to feel boring to me as our marriage progressed. He preferred quiet nights at home to wild parties, chose practical purchases over impulsive splurges, and seemed content with our simple lifestyle in ways that made me feel restless and trapped. Don't you want more excitement in your life? I would ask David when he suggested staying home instead of going out to clubs or bars. Don't you want to take risks and have adventures while we're still young? David would smile and pull me close. Jessica, my adventure is building a life with you. I don't need artificial excitement when I have something real and meaningful right here. His responses frustrated me because they seemed to prove that David lacked the passionate, spontaneous spirit I was craving in my life. I started to feel like David was holding me back from experiencing the kind of intense, dramatic love that I saw in movies and read about in romance novels. That's when I met Marcus at a bar downtown where I was having drinks with friends after work. Marcus was everything David wasn't: tall, muscular, covered in tattoos, and radiating the kind of dangerous confidence that made my heart race the moment I saw him. Marcus approached me aggressively, buying me drinks and making bold comments about how beautiful I was and how he could show me things my boring husband never could. He was direct, sexual, and completely focused on me in a way that made me feel desired and alive. "You're way too hot to be wasted on some safe, predictable guy," Marcus told me that first night. "You need a real man who can match your energy and give you the excitement you deserve." Marcus was a construction worker who lived paycheck to paycheck, rode a motorcycle, and had a reputation for being wild and unpredictable. He would text me constantly, send me explicit messages, and make me feel like I was the most desirable woman in the world. Within weeks, I was having a passionate affair with Marcus that was everything my marriage to David wasn't. Marcus was spontaneous, taking me on surprise trips and adventures. He was sexually aggressive in ways that made me feel completely consumed by passion. He was dangerous, with stories about fights and risks that made me feel like I was living in an action movie. "Your husband sounds like a boring loser," Marcus would tell me after our secret meetings. "You're a goddess who deserves to be worshipped by a real man, not some computer nerd who probably doesn't even know how to satisfy a woman like you." Marcus's words made me feel like I had been settling for a mediocre life with David instead of pursuing the intense, passionate relationship I deserved. I started to see David as weak, unexciting, and inadequate compared to Marcus's raw masculinity and sexual confidence. The contrast between my two relationships became more stark as my affair with Marcus intensified. David would come home from work with small gifts and gentle affection, while Marcus would text me demanding photos and describing what he wanted to do to me. David would suggest quiet dinners and romantic movies, while Marcus would pick me up on his motorcycle for spontaneous adventures and dangerous excitement. I felt like I was living two completely different lives, one safe and boring with David, and one thrilling and alive with Marcus. The choice between them seemed obvious to me at the time. After 6 months of cheating on David, I decided that I needed to end my marriage and start a new life with Marcus. I convinced myself that staying with David would mean settling for a loveless, passionless existence, while leaving him for Marcus would mean choosing true love and authentic happiness. I planned to ask David for a divorce on a quiet Sunday evening when we were having dinner at home. David had cooked my favorite meal and was talking excitedly about a new project at work that he thought might lead to a promotion and better salary. "Jessica, things are really starting to look up for us," David said, reaching across the table to hold my hand. "I think within a few years, we'll be able to afford a bigger house, maybe start thinking about having kids. I'm so excited about our future together." David's optimism and love made what I was about to do feel even more difficult, but I had convinced myself that I was doing the right thing for both of us. "David, I need to talk to you about something important," I said, pulling my hand away from his. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about our marriage, and I don't think we're right for each other anymore." David's face immediately showed confusion and concern. "What do you mean? Did I do something wrong? Is there something we need to work on together?" I had rehearsed this conversation with Marcus, who had coached me on what to say to justify leaving David for him. "David, you're a good person, but we want different things out of life. You're content with this quiet, predictable lifestyle, but I need passion and excitement. I need someone who can match my energy and give me the kind of love I deserve." David looked devastated. "Jessica, I love you more than anything in the world. If you need more excitement, we can work on that together. We can travel, try new things, whatever you want. Please don't give up on us." But I had already made my decision. "David, it's not about trying new things. It's about fundamental compatibility. You're boring, and I need someone who's exciting. You make decent money, but I want someone who's ambitious and successful. You're safe, but I need someone dangerous and passionate." David was quiet for a long moment, and I could see tears forming in his eyes. "Jessica, is there someone else? Is this about another man?" I could have lied, but Marcus had convinced me that honesty would be kinder than deception. "Yes, there is someone else. His name is Marcus, and he gives me everything that you can't. He makes me feel alive and desired in ways you never could." David's reaction was immediate and heartbreaking. He put his head in his hands and started crying, not angry tears, but the kind of deep, soul-crushing sobs that come from having your heart completely shattered. "Jessica, please don't do this," David begged. "I can change. I can be more exciting, more passionate, whatever you need. We can work through this together. I love you so much." But I was too infatuated with Marcus and too convinced that I was making the right choice to listen to David's pleas. "David, this isn't about you changing. This is about us being fundamentally incompatible. Marcus is everything you're not, and being with him makes me realize what I've been missing." David wiped his eyes and looked at me with a mixture of pain and concern. "Jessica, I'm worried about you. This Marcus guy, what do you really know about him? Is he someone who will take care of you and treat you with respect? Is he someone who will build a life with you? Or is he just using you for excitement?" His questions annoyed me because they sounded like jealousy and desperation. "Marcus loves me for who I really am," I said defensively. "He appreciates my passion and my spirit. He makes me feel like a goddess, not like some boring housewife." David shook his head sadly. "Jessica, real love isn't about making you feel like a goddess. Real love is about partnership, loyalty, and building something meaningful together. If this man is encouraging you to destroy your marriage, he doesn't really love you, he's using you. I felt angry at David for trying to undermine my relationship with Marcus. You're just saying that because you can't accept that I've found someone better than you. Marcus isn't using me. He's giving me the kind of love and passion that you never could. David tried one more time to save our marriage. Jessica, if you leave me for this man, I'm afraid you're going to get hurt. Men who encourage married women to cheat and leave their husbands aren't usually looking for serious, committed relationships. Please be careful and think about what you're really giving up. But I interpreted David's warnings as weakness and jealousy. David, I've already made my decision. I want a divorce, and I want it as soon as possible. I'm moving out this week to start my new life with Marcus. David nodded sadly and didn't fight me on any of the divorce proceedings. He let me take whatever I wanted from our house, didn't contest the division of our modest assets, and even wished me happiness as I moved in with Marcus. I hope you find what you're looking for, Jessica, David said on the day I moved out. And if things don't work out the way you expect them to, please know that I'll always care about you and want you to be safe. I dismissed David's words as the desperate hope of a man who couldn't accept that his wife had upgraded to someone better. Marcus was waiting for me with his motorcycle, and as we rode away from the house I had shared with David, I felt like I was finally free to live the exciting life I deserved. For the first 6 months of living with Marcus, I felt vindicated in my decision to leave David. Marcus was passionate, spontaneous, and sexually exciting in ways that made every day feel like an adventure. We would take last-minute road trips, go to underground parties, and have intense physical encounters that left me feeling completely consumed by desire. Marcus also introduced me to a lifestyle that was completely different from my quiet marriage with David. We lived in a rough neighborhood, spent time with his friends who were involved in various illegal activities, and embraced a kind of dangerous excitement that made my previous life seem incredibly tame. See how much more alive you are now. Marcus would tell me as we rode through the city late at night. Your ex-husband never could have given you this kind of freedom and excitement. I felt grateful to Marcus for showing me what I had been missing and proud of myself for having the courage to leave my boring marriage for something real and passionate. But gradually, the excitement of my new life started to reveal some troubling realities that I had been too infatuated to notice initially. Marcus's spontaneity often meant that we couldn't pay bills on time or plan for the future. His dangerous lifestyle put me in situations that were genuinely scary and uncomfortable. His passionate nature included a temper that could turn violent when he was frustrated or drunk. Marcus also had a possessive streak that initially felt romantic, but became increasingly controlling. He would get angry when I talked to other men, demand to know where I was at all times, and criticize me for maintaining friendships with people from my previous life. You don't need those boring friends from your old life, Marcus would tell me when I wanted to see girlfriends who had been supportive during my divorce. Those people don't understand who you really are now. I'm all you need. Marcus's jealousy extended to my job, where he would show up unexpectedly to check on me and make scenes if he thought male coworkers were being too friendly. His behavior was embarrassing and started affecting my professional reputation. But the most concerning change in Marcus was his attitude toward our relationship. The intense passion and desire that had initially made me feel so special started to feel more like possession and control than love. Marcus would have explosive arguments with me over small issues, followed by passionate reconciliations that felt more like manipulation than genuine affection. He would disappear for days without explanation, then return with extravagant, romantic gestures that temporarily made me forget about his unreliable behavior. 2 years into our relationship, Marcus's true character became impossible to ignore. He was cheating on me regularly with other women, lying about his whereabouts and activities, and becoming increasingly abusive when I confronted him about his behavior. "You're lucky I keep you around," Marcus told me during one of our fights. "Most guys wouldn't put up with a nagging ex-wife who left her husband for a real man. You should be grateful for what I give you instead of constantly complaining." I realized that Marcus had never actually loved me the way David had. Marcus had seen me as a conquest, A married woman he could seduce away from her husband to prove his own power and attractiveness. Now that the challenge was over, he treated me like an inconvenience rather than a partner. But I was too ashamed and too isolated to admit that I had made a mistake. I had burned bridges with friends and family who had warned me about Marcus, and I had no idea how to rebuild my life after destroying my marriage for a relationship that was turning into a nightmare. Meanwhile, I started hearing updates about David through mutual friends, and the news was both amazing and heartbreaking. David had thrown himself into his work after our divorce, and his dedication had paid off in incredible ways. The small startup where David worked had developed a revolutionary software application that had attracted major investors and corporate buyers. David's contributions to the project had been so significant that he was promoted to Chief Technology Officer, then to CEO when the company was acquired by a major tech corporation. Within 3 years of our divorce, David had become a multi-millionaire and one of the most respected young executives in the tech industry. He had used his success to start a charitable foundation, buy a beautiful house, and build the kind of life that I had criticized him for not providing when we were married. But the most painful news about David was that he had found love again with a woman who appreciated everything about him that I had taken for granted. Her name was Sarah, and she was a doctor who shared David's values about family, loyalty, and building something meaningful together. From what I heard through friends, Sarah adored David's gentle, thoughtful nature and supported his professional ambitions while building her own successful medical career. They seemed to have the kind of partnership that I had thrown away in pursuit of temporary excitement with Marcus. David and Sarah got engaged 3 years after my divorce, and their wedding was featured in local business magazines as a celebration of 2 successful professionals who had found true love and mutual respect. Meanwhile, my relationship with Marcus continued to deteriorate until it finally ended in the most painful way possible. Marcus left me for a younger woman he had been seeing behind my back, telling me that he had gotten bored with me and needed someone more exciting. "You're getting old and desperate," Marcus told me as he moved his things out of our apartment. "When I met you, you were this hot married woman who was fun to corrupt. Now you're just another needy ex-girlfriend who can't accept that the party is over." Marcus's cruelty was devastating, but what made it worse was realizing that he was probably right. I had given up a loving marriage and a loyal husband for a man who had never seen me as anything more than a temporary thrill. After Marcus left, I found myself completely alone for the first time in my adult life. I had no husband, no serious relationship prospects, and had damaged many of my friendships by choosing Marcus over the people who had tried to warn me about him. My career had also suffered during my years with Marcus, as his jealousy and unpredictable behavior had made me unreliable at work and had limited my professional opportunities. I was struggling financially and emotionally, wondering how I had gone from being a happily married woman to being completely isolated and lost. The worst part was realizing that David had been right about everything. He had warned me that Marcus was using me, that he would hurt me, and that I was giving up something real and valuable for something temporary and destructive. David had seen through Marcus's manipulation in ways that I had been too infatuated to recognize. 5 years after leaving David, I am living with the consequences of the worst decision I ever made. I am single, struggling financially, and haunted by the knowledge that I destroyed the best relationship I ever had for a man who never actually cared about me. David, meanwhile, is living the successful, happy life that he always had the potential to achieve. He found a woman who appreciated his qualities, built an incredible career, and created the kind of stable, loving family that I could have had if I hadn't been so foolish and ungrateful. Sometimes I see photos of David and Sarah on social media, looking genuinely happy and in love in ways that Marcus and I never were. They travel together, support each other's careers, and seem to have the kind of deep partnership that I now understand is far more valuable than temporary passion. I think about David's warning words often. Real love isn't about making you feel like a goddess. Real love is about partnership, loyalty, and building something meaningful together. David had offered me real love, and I had rejected it for the illusion of excitement with a man who was incapable of genuine commitment or care. Now David has given that real love to someone who deserves it, while I am left with the painful knowledge of what I lost. The boring, predictable husband I left for a dangerous bad boy turned out to be an extraordinary man who built an amazing life after I was no longer part of it. I learned too late that stability isn't boring, it's precious. Loyalty isn't weakness, it's strength. And gentle love isn't inadequate, it's the foundation for everything meaningful in life. David tried to save me from making this mistake, and I laughed at his concerns. Now I would give anything to have the chance to appreciate what he offered me. But that opportunity is gone forever. Some mistakes you can recover from, but losing the love of a genuinely good person because you were too immature to recognize its value is a regret that follows you for the rest of your life.